What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to another one of Tyler's tech tutorials. Today we are going to discuss current events in the fascinating world of technology. So let's start with this weird looking diagram in front of me. What is it? I don't know. So this is something I kind of threw together relatively quickly. I didn't really put a lot of time into it. And it, so this is networking in a Windows environment. So today we're going to focus on Active Directory and cloud computing. Now, I've already covered this in one of my previous videos, but today we're going to go a little more. We're going to stumble down the rabbit hole a little bit more. We're going to dive into some more advanced topics and what's going on behind the scenes. So let's discuss email for a second, because email is a huge. It's huge. It's probably one of the top rated softwares out there as far as usage and the importance of it and the reliability and how it's how it impacts an organization's communication. What is email? All right, I'm not going to answer that question. Everybody knows what email is. Email was actually the first form of communication when they designed the ARPANET, aka the internet, back in the late '60s. So the government could communicate with from various military installations and operatives throughout different geographical locations or nodes. Through various protocols. In this case, SNMP, SMTP, and TCP/IP. So there's a number of clients out there. There's Google, so that's Gmail. There's I don't know if Yahoo Messenger is still a thing. Remember AOL? It always kind of reminded me of Neil Diamond. America Online, America Online. Yeah, I'm not really a good singer, but AOL, that was so I had my AOL account set up with my AOL Messenger. It was synced up, so pretty cool. And then my Yahoo account was set up with my Yahoo Messenger. Why am I mentioning this? Because the majority of the users out here in the world use Outlook or the Microsoft Exchange, which is the back end of Outlook. So with Outlook, you have two things going on at the back end. It's actually two separate functions. You have Exchange server, which is a physical server on-prem stored in a building, server closet, data center, or basement, and a administrator maintains and administers and maintains that server on a daily basis. There's been a lot of publicity lately regarding vulnerabilities and accessing the Exchange servers through various backdoors, and a lot of companies have had to implement. They've had to react quickly. It's been kind of a nightmare. Microsoft and the federal government have actually pushed out directives on how to fix that, how to patch various Exchange servers, and how to prevent that from happening. So there's a number of backdoors out there that attackers can then gain access through those vulnerabilities and execute malicious code and have access to that system. So it's been That's why everyone is migrating to the cloud, because it that leaves me to the this side is the second part, that is Exchange Online, and that is Microsoft Office 365. And now we're getting into the topic of software as a service. So that's the way to go. If you're still dealing with an if you're still dealing with an on-prem Exchange server, I would highly consider migrating your users to Microsoft Office 365. It's actually no longer called Office 365. It's called Microsoft 365, and that's the way to go. So instead of managing your Exchange server, you manage it online through a web browser. You log in, um, through Office.com, and you go to the admin center, and you manage and administer your Exchange online. You've got your users, you got your groups, you have your shared mailboxes, your public folders, and all the same resources and functionalities you would on a on-prem Exchange server. It's really quite awesome. It also has its own pros and cons, and one of them being it's in the cloud. So one thing you want to do is make sure you have it locked down with multi-factor authentication. So that means whenever you log in, especially if you're an admin, whenever you log in, you're going to get the prompt for a PIN, or use the Microsoft Authenticator app where you click the button saying allow, this is me, and then use your thumbprint to authenticate. If you're not using multi-factor authentication today, yeah, you gotta do it, because it doesn't matter if you have a Google account, work account, bank account, all that stuff. Use multi-factor authentication and try to avoid SMS, getting that text message, because even that can be exploitable. It's not the most 100% secure way of to MFA. The Authenticator app and other various means will force biometric authentication, whether thumbprint, facial recognition. That's the way you want to go. So let's get back to the diagram here. So here we have the internet, all right? How do we provide services to our network, all right? So in this lab, we're going to have an Active Directory domain services environment. So we have users and computers that are stored as objects on our network in our Active Directory schema, that have password hash synchronization with Azure Active Directory AD Sync or AD Connector, so they can access their Office 365 resources. We have our on-prem Active Directory that will be responsible for Kerbos and NTLM, group policy, storing objects in the schema so they can log into the computer and access various resources on the network. So a lot of our users will be members of groups, local security groups, and those local security groups will be used to manage shared network drives through NTFS permissions. So I kind of went towards the bottom of that. So let's go back up to the top. So we have our internet right here. Internet slash ISP. It's going to be our service provider in this case. I'm not going to tell you. In this case, it's going to be AT&T. And how do we access the internet? I don't want to do that. We access the internet by going through our firewall, all right? And that allows us to access the World Wide Web, aka the internet, all right? So depending on how your business is set up, in this case we have a firewall, and then behind our firewall is our router. we have that's going to route the traffic on our network. The firewall is going to protect us. We can enable various services on our firewall, like content filtering, so we can block um, dangerous websites and pornography and gaming and social media and movies. And then we can use the security groups that we use for our network drives, and we can add them to our firewall so certain people can access resources and certain people can't. Let's say managers or administrators that need to access certain websites that others aren't allowed to. We would implement that in our firewall through content filtering services. So the router routes the traffic, and that's where we're going to set up um, our routing configurations, and we would um, basically it all depends on how your network's going to be set up. That's where we would set up the VLANs if we're going to be utilizing layer 2 switching, and we do have a switch down here that we're going to be using and testing, and all this is already set up and functioning as it should be. And our VPN gateway is actually, and I could probably remove this because it's going to be tied into the firewall and router. In some cases, the firewall and router are actually two in one, or three in one if you include the VPN. You configure all of those services on one appliance. Makes life a heck of a lot easier. So you're not logging into 3 different devices with 3 different passwords, and then you got to change it every 30 days or less if it's a networking appliance that is exposed to the internet, that you have to. So it's, yeah, one appliance would be awesome. So here we have, although it's never that simple, here we have our hypervisor. So this is a host machine. Yes, this is a physical server. What do you mean? I thought you said that we don't have any physical servers anymore and we're all in the cloud. No, we're not. So we still, as a country and as system administrators, 90% of the networks out there are still utilizing on-prem servers. That means we still have a network environment to maintain. Now, if you're keeping up with the standards, that's hard to do because it's expensive. In this case, this is a host machine. All right, so it's one server, and on this server, I can install something called virtualization software, and this is going to be Hyper-V. If you're a VMware, then it's VMware vSphere. One or the other. And what that does is that builds a hypervisor on the server, and that will basically take the resources, like your processing and your storage, and it will convert that into a hypervisor so you can build guest virtual machines on that same server. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 virtual servers that are accessing the physical hardware on this host machine. So you're talking CPU, you're talking RAM, storage, and we can configure each VM to be how we want it to. So if it's a domain controller, I'm gonna make sure the virtual hard drive is at least 126 gigs or more. Sometimes even 150 is not bad, depending on the size of your environment. 8 gigs of RAM is minimal, is the standard practice, and each VM is set up like that. So the VM is actually, these are going to be the bread and butter of our lab. All right, we have actually only 2 of them right now that are really going to matter. For this purpose, I'm not going to waste the time of building out 5 servers, even though I could. And they're all virtual machines, so it's a click of a mouse, done. You don't have to lift or pull or pop or screw or lift. I think I already said lift. So let's talk about this guy right here. All right, this is going to be our domain controller, and I believe that is over here someplace. Okay, right here. Very good. I don't know why it's like that. Let me fix that real quick. Yeah, it's not going full screen. Tell you what, we're going to stop this video and pick it up later.